Hey YouTube, welcome back to another discussion video. And today I wanted to discuss a topic that I've been thinking about for a while now. This topic has always been in the back of my mind, and I've wanted to do a video like this for some time, but I just wasn't quite sure how to approach the topic. But I figured I might as well just give it a shot. I don't really care how it's going to be perceived. I just really do want to get my feelings out there. So the topic I want to discuss today has to do with minorities in video games. More specifically, the lack of positive and prominent and non-stereotypical black characters in games. I grew up in the heyday of the Nintendo Entertainment System. You know, I was 6 years old when the NES launched in the United States. So growing up playing the NES and even playing the Sega Genesis, it was rare. You know, I barely ever thought about the fact that there weren't minorities in these video games. There weren't minority characters in any of the games that I was playing. Now, I remember clearly, I used to think the reason why there weren't any minority characters in these video games was because I guess the limitations of the systems. I figured that if they made characters that were like my color or darker, it would be hard to see them on the TV screen. I mean, that's just the way I thought back then. But to be honest with you guys, it never really was a big issue. I was just happy that I could have a controller in my hand and be able to play video games. But it wasn't until around 1999 or about 2000 that I was in my local Toys R Us looking for a game. So I'm browsing the video game section and I'd come across a display for Urban Chaos, and I was just blown away. I could not believe it. And it might sound silly now, but I totally remember just being like, wow, this is pretty awesome. Not only is there a female, you know, I mean, yeah, we saw Lara Croft, you know, I played Tomb Raider games and I loved them. So there's another female that's a lead character in a video game, but she's black as well. That's pretty awesome. So I bought the game, took it home, played it, and I enjoyed it. I felt like I had a special connection with it. If you guys don't know, Urban Chaos is like a sandbox open world game, and you play as the protagonist. Her name is Darcy, and she's a rookie police officer, and she's trying to take down these gangs in this urban setting. And I just remember having a blast with it and being very hopeful at the time. You know, I remember hoping that I could play another video game that had a positive, like just a cool minority as the leading character. So a year passed, and upon recommendations, I went on to play Final Fantasy VII. I had never played the game before, had no clue what to expect, just knew it was an RPG that a lot of people loved. And I first came across Barrett, and I was like, this is pretty cool. This is another minority in a video game. I can get down with this. And that was until I started reading all of Barrett's like dialogue. My God, I don't care what anyone says. To me, Barrett was a joke. He seemed like he was trying to impersonate Mr. T. The character just, everything he said, it was just like, yo, you know, and his English was just so broken. And I remember being really disappointed with that. I couldn't quite understand why he had to speak like that, and no one else in the game spoke like that. Years go by, and then we get Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, and we have the main character, CJ, who is a black male. And I'm not quite sure how people perceive CJ. I personally at first thought it was very negative, and that's not to say that the game is horrible, because I do love San Andreas. I think it's an amazing game. But you do have a game based off of black males in a gang with the bitches and hoes mentality, drug sellers, just everything that people at the time, you know, this game is based off like the early to mid 90s. At the time, people stereotype black people as that character. And then the last example I'm going to share with you guys is totally the icing on the cake. I mean, this just tops it off. From Deus Ex Human Revolution, we have Letitia. And this chick is just absurd.
Well, shit, if it ain't the captain himself. Mr. Seraph done fixed you up good, ain't he? Give you a new set of glasses and everything. Damn.
All I can do is shake my head at that. I mean, after all of these examples, I just started thinking, like, why aren't there any positive black characters in video games? Why aren't there any positive black characters that aren't a stereotype? I mean, do publishers feel that they can't put black characters, or any minorities for that case, in leading roles because they fear that the game isn't going to sell well? Or is it that that's the way people perceive my culture? You know, this race, that's a scary thought. That's really scary to think about because it's 2013 and it's kind of scary to think that, you know, we, for the most part, have video games with characters like Letitia. Now, by no means do I want to come off as being negative. You know, on one hand, we do have minority characters in video games that are perceived in a negative light, with that negative stigma and that stereotype attached. But on another hand, there are plenty of other minorities, plenty of other black characters in video games that are more positive. For example, we have Sheva Alomar from Resident Evil 5. I mean, she was pretty badass, but if I'm not mistaken, I do remember being on message boards and things of that nature, and people just totally getting on Sheva because she was black. You have Aveline from Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation, who is very positive. I mean, she's mixed. I think she's half French and half African, if I'm not mistaken. But, you know, she's positive. You know, she comes across as having a purpose. And then you have Lee from The Walking Dead, who's an amazing main character. You know, you really can't tell the difference from all of the characters I just named. You can't tell the difference between them and any other character that is not black or is not a minority in the games, because they're not being stereotyped. They're just like everyone else, except they just have a darker shade. I don't know, maybe a lot of you don't think about things like this, but I definitely think it's something worth thinking about. You know, we have a new generation right around the corner. We have a new generation of consoles coming up. And while everyone else is, you know, wondering what kind of new technology these new consoles are going to bring, don't get me wrong, I'm thinking the same thing. But another thing that I'm thinking more than that is, are we going to see more characters that are varied, more minorities in video games that aren't negative, that aren't stereotyped, that are just regular people with a different culture? Is this issue a reason for me to stop playing video games and go and protest and say there's not enough minorities in video games? Of course not. But as I said, I did want to bring it to your attention. I mean, we're in the year 2013, and you would think by now we'd see more color in our video games as far as the characters go. And I'm not just talking about black characters. I would love to play more video games that had main lead characters of Latin descent. I mean, it would be cool. That would be cool to play a game, you know, that had a main character, a lead character who was gay. I mean, you know, why hasn't that happened yet? I just don't get it. And another thing that I kind of don't get, I really can't wrap my brain around, is the fact that I feel that there aren't enough minorities working in the video game industry. And that might have an impact on what we see on our television. You know, the fact that there isn't enough minorities working in these video game companies to have an input to say, hey, why can't we make, you know, this character brown, or why can't we make this character gay? That might be the underlying issue, and who knows, you know, who knows what's gonna happen. But it's definitely something that I would love to see in this next generation of consoles. So let me know what you guys think. I mean, leave a video response or a comment below, just voicing your opinion on the lack of minorities in video games. You know, I don't know, is it just me? Am I the only one that feels that minorities are just so stereotyped in these video games? As always, I want to thank all of you for watching this video, and I'll check you next time.